Does the country that spills its blood for the values that NATO stands for belong to the alliance? The summit in Vilnius is about to answer the question. Good afternoon. This is Henry Keane on UATV English, wrapping up hard truth in easy terms daily for the whole free world directly from Ukraine. A two-day NATO summit will begin tomorrow on July 11th in Vilnius. The Ukrainian accession issue is a key thing on the agenda, of course. It is officially approved by the majority of alliance countries. France and Turkey recently expressed such support. Still, there is a way to go to the goal for Ukraine. Ukraine's Euro-Atlantic course, however, is constitutionally set and has no alternative. On September 30th, 2022, Kyiv submitted an official application to join NATO.
No final decision has been made, but at the summit I'm absolutely certain that we'll have a unity and a strong message on Ukraine. I put forward a package in Oslo at the informal foreign ministerial there, and that included three elements. One was to have a program of practical support to ensure full interoperability between Ukrainian forces and NATO forces. This will move Ukraine closer to NATO. The other element was to establish the NATO-Ukraine Council. This is a platform to consult and also to make decisions together. And the third element was to remove the requirement for the membership action plan, turning the membership process for Ukraine moving it from a two-step process to a one-step process. And now we are discussing these elements and this package and also finalizing the discussions and the negotiations on the precise language. So I will not go into the details about what allies are in the process of agreeing, but I welcome the fact that we are now building on the package that was launched in Oslo, and I'm confident that we have a good and strong and positive message when the leaders meet.
Obviously, in everything except for security guarantees, Ukraine can be considered a de facto member of NATO. To formalize the status de jure is what remains to do, though. Ukraine expects a clear prospect of membership with a clear time frame. In addition, Ukraine expects the summit to prioritize the supply of weaponry and ammunition necessary for the deoccupation of Ukrainian territories ASAP. As world leaders prepare to gather this week for a much-anticipated NATO summit in Vilnius, Lithuania that is going on right now, the alliance's unity may be newly tested as divisions over the type of assurances made to Ukraine regarding its future membership become starker. More than 500 days into a grinding war launched by Russia in February 2021, Ukraine has pressed for a detailed path towards membership into the alliance that some members countries appear reluctant to provide. Such an impasse has prompted some concerns in Kyiv and among some Eastern European NATO members that the Vilnius summit, touted for weeks by the Biden administration as a show of enduring support, may result again in ambiguous commitments reminiscent of those made in Bucharest in 2008.
Honest answer is that we're really working hard now. This ongoing process, it's in very active position now. So what will finally happen, we'll see tomorrow evening, hopefully. So these negotiations and also the formation of the communique text is ongoing process right now. Our ambassadors and foreign ministries and everybody is negotiating, and I cannot say exact the point where we are now, because this is exactly what is going on. But the most important is not only this text, what is coming out, but we have to understand that everybody understands it the same way what we have promised then, that the process is starting for Ukraine, that we have decided that Ukraine will really become the member of NATO. Putin must understand as well very clearly that there won't be gray zones anymore. He has no hope that he can somehow stop the process, even with a long-term frozen conflict zone as he has done before in Georgia or even in Ukraine, if we see what happened after the 2014. But also for Ukrainians, of course, give the clear message that Ukrainians, you belong to NATO, and it gives as well the hope and support for the soldiers, actually, for fighting every day and losing their lives.
Amen to that, but it was there in Bucharest that NATO members told Ukraine and fellow candidate Georgia they will become members of the alliance. But despite public pressure from then US President George Bush, declined to offer them the MAP membership action plans that would have laid out a detailed roadmap. Later that year, Russia invaded Georgia, and 6 years later, in 2014, seized Crimea. Well, let us wait just 2 more days, maybe, to get the answer. The United States announced a new package of military aid to Ukraine, which included DPICM cluster munitions. Russian propaganda, of course, is fueling the cluster munition scandal, just as it did with depleted uranium munitions. The sole purpose of the Kremlin's disinformation campaign is to reduce the offensive potential of Ukrainian forces in any way possible. The need to provide cluster munitions to Ukraine is connected with need to break through the powerful field fortifications of the Russians in the Donbass and Azov region, and Russians, of course, don't want that. Cluster munitions are a solution designed to give the Western military industry time to manufacture conventional munitions that are extremely needed by Ukraine in counteroffensive, and Russians, of course, don't want that either, because the cluster munitions will ensure parity, as the Russians have been using them against Ukraine for a long time, and Russians don't like parity, you see. They hate it. Moreover, they fail when things are even to prevail, dominate and terrorize. That is the Russian way. So they are using every formal pretext to deprive our army from having parity in munitions. But there is no even the formal chance this time, since there is no formal violation of any international obligations, as Ukraine, the US and the Russian Federation did not join the Convention on Cluster Munitions on 2008, which prohibits its use. Also, DPICM munitions made in the West are safer than Russians' counterparts because the rate of those failing to explode is below 2.35%, while the same fail rate is 30 to 40% for Russian clusters. Russia has still used cluster munitions in densely populated cities of Ukraine, not only in the battlefield, which is nothing but a war crime. Ukraine won't ever use cluster munitions in cities, as well as on the territory of the Russian Federation, and we, as the country, have signed all the necessary documents for that. There is one more thing to add to the whole thing, though. We are talking about Russians, the same guys who, while whining about cluster munitions, are planning and planting mines in Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Just rewind that and listen to this again. Russians are planting mines at nuclear power reactor, complaining about Ukrainian cluster munitions while preparing a cluster blast for the whole world. Well, things just can't get any more Russian, right? Denis Prokopenko, Sviatoslav Palama, Serhiy Volinsky, Oleg Khomenko and Denis Shlega, Ukrainian Azov commanders, return home to Ukraine on July 8th. Ukraine thanks Turkish authorities for consent and help. Our heroes successfully led the long and bloody defense of Mariupol Azovstal in spring of 2022, distracting significant enemy forces are finally home. Liberation from captivity and the return of its soldiers is one of the main priorities of Ukraine in this war. Ukraine managed to return more than 2,000 soldiers from captivity, in particular from Azovstal garrison since the full-scale invasion. The Kremlin's accusations of violation of the agreement are groundless, or rather said, are not groundless if you are standing on the Kremlin grounds. It was the Russian Federation that violated each and every international agreement by starting this war, and even the agreement reached the day before the decision to cease defense of Azovstal has been reached between the warring parties and been violated by Russia. Prisoners of the garrison were kept in inhumane conditions. They were abused, beaten, limited in food and medical care. After release, many were diagnosed with physical exhaustion. In July 2022, the occupiers committed a mass murder of prisoners of Azov in Olenivka. On June 14, 2023, the Russians staged a trial prisoners from the Azov regiment who were accused of serving their country and performing their duties. Thousands of civilians were killed inside Mariupol when Russian forces laid waste to the city during the 3-month siege. The Ukrainian defenders held out in tunnels and bunkers under the Azovstal plant until they were finally ordered by Kyiv to surrender in May last year. Moscow freed some of them in September in a prisoner swap brokered by Ankara under terms that required the commanders to remain in Turkey until the end of the war, but Ankara decided otherwise. Peskov, spokesman for Kremlin, said the release was the result of heavy pressure from Turkey's NATO allies in the run-up of the Vilnius Summit of the military alliance. Maybe it is finally becoming more and more obvious to the countries of the world that Russia systematically violates agreements concluded with everyone. It even violates the agreement with its own peoples, the moment when Putin has changed the constitution of the country. And what is the reason to keep up the terms with a country that violates its own constitution? It was Henry Keane on UATV Daily, wrapping up the hard truth in easy terms for you, dear free world, directly from Ukraine. Ask us a question in the comments below, and we do our best to answer it. Your opinion matters to us. Like, comment, and subscribe. Stay safe and tune for more.